Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani Diane Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani Diane Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm film scholar and killer snot monster from outer space, Noelle LaCroix.
And I'm story expert and girl who can break things just by looking at them, Lani Diane Rich. And we're here today to talk about Listening to Fear, the 9th episode of Season 5.
Listening to Fear aired on November 28th, 2000, and was written by Rebecca Rand Kirshner and directed by David Solomon.
If you have not yet heard, Still Pretty is a fully spoiled Buffy podcast, so everything we discuss here will reference all of Buffy, some of Angel, and maybe even a bit of the comic books on occasion. If you are spoiler phobic, go watch it all and then come on back. Yep, Space Lamb got him. So let's go on patrol. In Listening to Fear, Buffy stays with Joyce in the hospital while the Scoobies patrol. Willow dusts 2 vampires, and Riley doesn't get any because he skipped patrolling for Buffy so he could go get his arm sucked by a vampire. At the hospital, the brain tumor is making Joyce say weird stuff. The warehouse guard Glory destabilized zeroes in on Dawn, saying she's not real. Later, Willow and Tara cuddle on the roof, naming constellations.
I see a huge flaming meteor about to crash into something.
At the hospital, Buffy asks the doctor if Joyce can rest at home until her surgery in a couple of days. We see the monster that landed in the meteorite scurry across the ceiling. Out in the woods, the Scoobies plus Riley investigate the meteor crash site and discover the body of the warehouse guy. While the Scoobies go to research, Riley hangs back and calls in the initiative. Back at home, Joyce wakes up for midnight pancakes and Buffy puts her back to bed. But as Joyce sees Dawn, she really sees Dawn.
You sing. Please. Get away from me. You're nothing. You're a shadow.
That night, Joyce rants away in her room. But what neither Dawn nor Buffy realize is that she's talking to a demon all lounged out on the ceiling in a hey baby pose, which is weird. The Scoobies figure out that it's a Queller demon coming to town to kill all people with mental illness. Riley and the Initiative go to the hospital to track it, but hit a dead end, and he figures out that it hitched a ride with Joyce, who has a brain tumor, not mental illness, and Riley hasn't seen her acting weird, but whatever. There's only 8 minutes left in the show.
Give me a list of all patients discharged in the last 24 hours.
I know where it's going. We've got to move, now!
The demon finally decides that it's flirted with Joyce long enough and descends upon her, barfing up some kind of solidifying mucus all over her face. And if that's your kink, okay, but this is non-consensual mucusing. Dawn hears Joyce screaming and comes in, then chases the demon away with a coat rack because she's a fucking badass. She screams for Buffy, who hunts through the house for the demon. She finds one, but it's not a Queller, it's Spike coming up from the basement where he'd been stealing pictures of Buffy. Before Buffy can react to that weirdness, the Queller attacks. She and Spike fight it, and she kills it, and then Riley busts in with the Initiative, just in time to do cleanup. Meanwhile, out in the hospital parking lot, Ben is not at all surprised to see Glory's minion, Dreg, hanging out in his back seat.
I just want to understand, why summon the Queller?
What do you think? Because I'm cleaning up Glory's mess, just like I've done my whole damn life.
The next day, Buffy sits with Joyce in the hospital as they wait for her to go into surgery. Joyce tells Buffy that she knows that Dawn isn't really her daughter, but it doesn't matter. She still feels like her daughter. She asks Buffy to promise to take care of Dawn, and Buffy promises. She hugs Dawn close to her as they watch Joyce wheel away to surgery.
My sweet, brave Buffy. What would I do without you?
All right, so Noelle, here we are. Talking about Listening to Fear, which is yet another one of these episodes. Now, I think that like I don't know Buffy as well as like some people. There are people out there who like know Buffy like every minute, everything, and they remember everything about it. I know most of the major stuff. I would say I'm like 75% Buffy expert, 25% cream cheese. And the thing with these episodes, last week's Shadow, this week Listening to Fear, is that I know vaguely like they have to do with Joyce and her brain and all of that stuff, but I never remember exactly what they are. And I was like I was up until they were, Tara and Willow were staring at the sky and the constellations. I was like, oh, that's which one this is, you know? And it's never been one of my favorites. But like the thing is that there's three basic categories of television episode, not just Buffy, but like of anything, right? There's the good, there's the bad, there's the meh, right? You know, and the good are good, right? So they're always fun to talk about because they're good. We may not have quite as much to say because we're like, yeah, that was really good, you know, but they're really fun to talk about and they make for a good episode of analysis, right? And the bad are, you know, maybe bad, but usually they're bad in like really interesting, crunchy ways. And so actually, I think for me personally are the most fun to talk about. I love talking about the bad episodes. Those are really great. But the meh episodes, those are like the worst episodes because they aren't good enough to be good. So you can't talk about what was good, and they're not interesting enough to be bad. They're just like, you know, whatever, like meh. Like a Queller demon from, you know, fucking outer space or whatever. And that's what Listening to Fear is for me, you know, and Shadow from last week was that a little bit. They're like, yeah, you know, they're not terrible, but they're just not great episodes. And so I don't know, for me, Listening to Fear is very much of the meh, you know, category. So where does it land for you?
It's definitely meh for me as well. Although I might like it a little bit better than Shadow.
Okay.
Maybe slightly. But here's the thing that's kind of interesting about this episode to me. This is our third episode that takes place basically, they're bam, 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 right? So Fool for Love, and then Shadow, and then Listening to Fear. It's like 3 days. 3 episodes, 3 days.
Right.
So
yeah,
we've cramped, which is funny because sometimes we get episodes that are effectively, you know, weeks or months apart. So to have these 3
in this like compressed time.
Yeah, because I mean, because the story or a big chunk of the story is Joyce's brain tumor. Joyce is in the hospital. It's a lot of waiting. Like last week we were waiting in the waiting room and now we're waiting in the room.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but it doesn't, there's not a lot of passage of time or passage of story that happens. But what I did notice about Listening to Fear that I kind of enjoyed, but also kind of wondered about, is that it's essentially Shadow Part 2.
I know we get our Shadow, the third beat of the Shadow thing we get in this one. And I was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Could we not have like had a little bit of that in last week or something so that like, I mean, I guess because this is the moment where Joyce realizes, you know, where she has this sudden knowledge from on high that there is something different about Dawn, right? But yeah, waiting for that Shadow 3 beat, that feels like it should have been last week.
Yeah, it really does, especially because it's Joyce to Dawn. You're nothing, you're a shadow. There it is, but
yeah.
Okay. Like not quite.
No. And it's not satisfying the way it would be if it was actually part of the same episode.
Or if it were, if we were doing a metaphor with the brain tumor as a direct effect of Dawn's presence in the world, that if Dawn, you know, if Joyce has a shadow that's showing up on this scan in her brain,
and then Dawn is
the shadow. If we were doing something where we were making a connection between the tumor and this individual.
And Glory, the Glory that somehow that Glory, because Glory is the one that destabilizes the other people who see Dawn, right, so if it was a Glory thing, but I mean the whole point is what they keep stressing is that what's happening to Joyce is just mundane. It does not have a mystical element, and so therefore we can't deal with it mystically. Like that's the whole point.
But that whole "you are the shadow" thing really says that it kind of is, that it's almost like the creation of Dawn also necessitated like a butterfly effect thing. Like
I'm Buffy, right? At which point, if I'm Buffy, I'm like, oh, evidence for mystical. Let's get the spells out. Let's fix my mom, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That made me.
It's muddy.
Mm-hmm. It made me wish that the 2 episodes had been worked maybe into one somehow. I don't know that we would have ended up with like a space cockroach, but I like
whatever the fuck that is.
I mean,
right?
But if we had done something, because in Shadow, Glory summons the Snake He-Man, and then we find out that, oh shit, Ben summoned the Queller demon from outer space to clean up Glory's mess. What? But if there had been, I don't know. I feel like there's another way to do that. Like, I like the idea of each of them summoning something, and then maybe we think the tumor is connected to Dawn somehow. I don't know. There's just enough connection between Shadow and Listening to Fear that I want there to be more. Like the Joyce POV thing that I talked about with Shadow. We get that lovely opening shot. Well, here the final shot is Joyce's POV, and not just in the sense that we're like with her as she's being wheeled into surgery, but we're literally seeing what she's seeing as she's being wheeled away from the group, and they're all gathered there to see her off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice bookend after last week's opening shot of Joyce alone in the hospital for her scan, but it's not. It's just
but it doesn't feel meaningfully connected.
No.
It's like they're really like pale reflections of each other. And that's one of the things, like I kind of see this episode as like story leftovers, right? It's just what was in the fridge after they finished Shadow.
I love that
and
phrase.
They pulled it out. But I mean, it kind of feels like sad, warmed up Shadow remnants, remnants from an episode, which, by the way, was not really that much to speak of. It's bad reheated meatloaf.
Right.
Is what
and then
it
you
is.
put some cheese on it to like kind of spruce it up a little bit. And it's just not.
They did add some new things. Like we've got explicitly showing us a connection between Ben and Glory, which we had hinted at when she shows up and grabs the demon that's about to come for him, right? So we show that the floppy haired douche in turn is evil, we have Dawn notice that
questionable.
No, evil. He summoned a demon to kill people with mental illness. Nope. Evil. I don't care what he's doing. I don't care why he's doing it. He is a doctor. There is an oath involved that you do no fucking harm. But aside from that, as a human, there are morals. You do not kill people. I'm sorry. That's just, you don't do, unless somebody is coming at you to kill you or kill somebody else, in which case they took the gloves off, right? You do not fucking kill people. And to bring in a demon that is just going, and what happens when it runs out of Glory's victims? Then it's just going to go throughout the world looking for anybody with like any kind of mental instability, which, by the way, is all of us. All of us have mental instability of one kind or another, and mental and emotional, health issues happen. And it is how it is, But yeah, so I find that so unbelievably disturbing and gross, and I really, really super hate Ben. And I also super hate that we don't textually seem to call him out as being like absolute evil until like way later in the season. And even then, it's sympathetic evil because like he's stuck in this body with Glory and he's just a victim and he's just, who can blame him for trying to... No, bad dude. bad dude. Queller says bad dude. That is the judge's reading, and yet we don't really seem to textually, and that's how I remember it. We'll watch throughout the rest of the season. I'll see if I change my mind. But as I recall it, textually, we kind of sympathize with Ben for a lot of this season, and this is the point where we stop sympathizing with Ben because fuck you, Ben, right? I mean, I realize things have not been ideal for Ben. Fine. But this is where he is actual, like, evil.
Which is funny because his name means good. Like, that's fascinating.
Right?
So
yes, it is ironic. Because he is not good. He is not good. A couple other things that are new. The added cheese in this episode, to extend the bad meatloaf metaphor, is having Dawn notice that people keep telling her that she's not real. And then Joyce, of course, gaining this knowledge that Dawn isn't really hers. And again, feels just like we're warming up old stuff, you know? We have the people that Glory whammied, seeing Dawn as, you know, not a girl. So we've gotten that. Joyce has her brain tumor. We knew that before. We're revisiting that again. Riley's going dark and resents that Buffy isn't including him in her trauma, which maybe she's not doing because you won't let her trauma be about her, Riley. Maybe think about that for a minute. Whatever. Spike stalking Buffy, but in such a cute way. Okay. Which is, by the way, how I demonstrate for everybody that it's okay to feel conflicted about Spike, but it's not okay to allow his cuteness to blind you to the fact that this is creepy. This is creepy and super wrong that he is climbing around in her, you know, cellar trying to find pictures of her.
It's creepy and super wrong, but I think it's also allowed to be cute and funny because Spike is not...
Because he is a vampire, yes.
Well, but he's also, like, not really... I don't think any of us believe that Spike is really a threat to Buffy. He's more of an annoyance. So
he is more of an annoyance. And he's also evil, so it's okay when evil people do evil things.
But he's certainly capable... Like, he's certainly capable of really, really hurting her, but she doesn't take him very seriously, which enables us to not take what he's doing very seriously.
Yes. Yeah, are those pictures of me and then the Queller text?
It's great. It's great.
It's damned adorable.
I also love him not even, like, he has no story. Like, he's not going to try to cover.
Oh, there's nothing.
He's just like, it's not like I can get a job, you know, serving burgers. I'm like, that, okay. I mean, fair play to the evil guy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But in these few minutes, though, with Spike, like, it builds up the relationship with Spike and Buffy. And I know I've said this before. I'll say it again. And everybody who out there is drinking water every time I say this, then go ahead and get your glasses. But when you have people who work well together, and in 30 seconds, we have, you know, he's all weird and creepy. Then he jumps into action with Buffy. You know, they kill this Queller together. He tosses her the knife. She seamlessly grabs it out of the air, stabs a thing. Their timing is perfect, and then holds out his hand. We have that close-up of his hand as he pulls her up, and they work together so beautifully. And then in comes Riley as the anti-Spike, right? In every possible way, the anti-Spike. And I love that. I also love that Spike, has no problem being a backup to her. He doesn't have to be the one doing the killing. He doesn't have to, in another way that he's the anti-Riley, right? Doesn't have to be the one doing the killing, does not mind being a support person to her. And they work so beautifully together. And
it's so quick.
I kind of love it.
It's done so quickly and so effectively. And, you know, you talk about working well together and obviously, you know, collaborating to kill a demon or solve a puzzle or whatever is working well together. Right. But I think there's also a working well together in the not lying to each other. Like, he could try to create a story in that moment about, like, why he's there or what he's doing, but he's like, yeah, I'm stealing your stuff.
I'm stealing your stuff. Exactly. And I love that. You know, and he was hiding the fact that it was pictures, but he was absolutely like, yeah, I'm stealing your stuff.
Yeah, I'm stealing your stuff. Whatever.
Which I think is really super great. And I love that relationship. And I'm telling you, you get people who work well together, and that is the best way to build any relationship, but especially romance. So let's go to the anti-Spike.
Oh my God, the anti-Spike. Well, I also love, just as a little coda on that, that Spike has to get in a dig at Riley. As Riley comes in, he's like,
yes,
you missed
does.
it.
Yeah,
Like,
you missed it.
good job. Yeah.
You miss it.
And of course, Riley. Oh, Riley. Riley.
Riley.
Riley's. Does it bother anyone else that Riley's extracurricular activities are just framed so weirdly in this episode?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They're really setting up Riley getting munched on by a vampire in a back alley as like doing the drugs.
Also there's like a prostitution element to it.
Yeah.
Although who's the prostitute?
Yeah.
Because she's set up as a prostitute, but she's also like getting a meal.
It's a weird, but it's not, I don't know. It's not sexy. I don't think. I mean, maybe it's sexy to somebody.
I don't think it's sexy, but it feels like it's set up with that kind of feel to it, you know?
But even, I don't know.
The way she's sucking on his arm. I mean,
she's
sucking on him. Like,
okay,
maybe there's something really wrong with me, but it's very bodily.
We get that shot where we see her fingers like grasp his shoulder in this very
it feels
sexual,
very back alley sex to me.
Sort of
it feels more like prostitution than drugs to me as a metaphor.
I get more of a like back alley drug deal sort of feel from this moment.
Yeah.
Which is odd to me and also frustrating because we usually get vampires here and elsewhere as being very connected to sex and sexuality. And I think that's great. Right. I think that's a fun metaphor to play with. And here it's just kind of like, wah, wah, wah. Like, I don't love it. Like, I like, okay.
It's sad trombone prostitution drugs.
Like, it's such a bummer. And here's the thing. Here is the thing. Well, here's the thing for me.
Okay.
I like the idea behind Riley trying to like get it about vampires, like trying to have this experience that will
Is he trying to understand, or is he trying to like darken himself?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, and that's part of why I'm confused about this story as it plays out. But what I like is the setup. Like, I think that idea that he would somehow, how do I want to say this? I like the idea that Riley would choose to engage with vampires in a way that goes beyond just, well, they're subterrestrials and I'm going to stake them because they're evil, bad monsters and they're always bad and evil.
Right.
I like the idea of him kind of, experimenting with vampirism, for lack of a better phrase. But it's done in such a clunky way. And because we don't really have a good baseline for how much sympathy we're supposed to have for Riley,
right,
it falls kind of flat for me. But I think as a concept, as like a story idea, I'm into it. I just don't like where it goes or how it's executed.
I think it's the why of it. Like, I actually wouldn't mind it if it was an identity thing, right? And especially because here he calls in his old girlfriend, the Initiative, right? So, like, he calls in the Initiative.
Oh, Graham and Riley together again. I hoped those crazy kids would work it out.
I know. I like them so much. But I think that, like, what bothers me about it is that this all comes from the fact that Buffy will not allow her trauma to be about him, right? That it's got to be that he's the one who's there to, to be there. And then also, like, that he didn't know that Joyce was in the hospital, that, like, he didn't know, like, the basic things, So we had an element of that here. So we're building this up as, like, he is experimenting with this darkness, not because he's trying to figure out who he is. Which I think after everything that happened in the Initiative is a wonderful, it's a little bit off step because season 4 was our identity, season.
Yeah.
So, get with the program, Riley. But
late to the party.
I think there's never a time where it's a bad time to have a struggle with identity. I think that that's fantastic. And I like if he was doing that, where he was trying to figure out who he is when he's not part of this group, when he's not part of the initiative, and not really feeling like he has a place, you know, in the Scoobies either, for whatever reason, you know, that he's just having that, like, the idea that he's struggling with his identity does not bother me. I actually kind of like that. You know, I love a good identity story. Like that shit works for me, you know? But the fact that it's all Buffy's fault, I love you so much, it makes me crazy. All of these things that he says, you make me so crazy because I love you so much. That is something that is disturbing, that has that, you know, that little, you know, hint of codependence that's always really alarming. There's so much of it that I feel would have been good had it been done in a different way, had it been done in a way that he was pulling away from her, not because she wasn't giving him enough reassurance that he was still Captain America, but that deep down inside, he didn't know if he was Captain America. Like, he didn't know if that's who he really was, or if that was just something that, you know, and so as like to have him meet this Sandy vampire and like have a connection with her of some sort at this bar, as opposed to, well, let her bite me and then stake her. You know, if he was cheating kind of in that way, making it not about Buffy, but about him, I actually would have really liked that. I would have thought that was a really interesting story for him, you know? But this petulant, I'm going to have a vampire bite me because my girlfriend isn't letting her trauma be about me. Yeah,
Buffy's so mean. She'll never talk to me. I'm going to let this vampire munch on my arm.
Yeah, it really is. It's so freaking irritating. I don't know. So my patience for Riley, wears out so hard at this point in the run that it actually retroactively goes back and poisons any delight I might have gotten from Riley in early season 4. You know, it's so irritating and annoying and like not up to the kinds of stories that we tell, you know, in the Buffyverse, that I don't know. I just don't have any patience for it.
It just bums you out. Like, he's still here and you're just bummed about it.
I'm not even bummed. I mean, like, I'm past annoyed and angry. Now I'm just like tired. He just comes on the screen and I'm like, when is it over? You know, I don't care. I have very, very rarely cared less about anything than I care about Riley and his stupid bullshit right now, you know?
Well, and a character you don't care about is like
forget it.
That's pretty much the worst.
That's the worst. It's the worst. Because even the ones that you hate are the ones that are terrible, you know, you can still like get something out of that character, you know, but Riley is just, again, you know, he is the unflavored mashed potato reheated next to this bad meatloaf with weird cheese on it. That is listening to fear. There is no metaphor I will not extend way past the expiration date. I'm just letting you know. Okay, speaking of past the expiration date, let's talk a little bit about the Queller. I hate this demon. How did you feel about the Queller as a monster? You okay?
I just love that you're like, I'm going to talk about this demon. I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't hate it as much as you do, but
okay, good.
Go. Like, it's great. I love it when you're just like, nope, cancel, next, can't do it.
Hard nope. Capital N nope for me. Capital KN, Leslie nope for me. Yes, the Queller is just not. Okay, here's the thing. I hate that it's from space, right? Although demons run like all throughout the universe, you know, they generally travel via like portals or mystical things, meteorites. You know, it feels counter to the world building of Buffy, you know, the same way the Initiative did. And while I don't think it's inherently bad to combine sci-fi and fantasy elements, it always just feels weird to me. Although I realize that I don't mind fantasy elements mixed into like space-based sci-fi. That doesn't bother me. But sci-fi elements in an Earth-based fantasy just feels weird to me. It might just be me. I know I've had this discussion with people before, and many people have disagreed with me and made really, really good arguments for why it's not a problem. But for me, it just always feels like they contradict each other in some kind of like essential way that just makes it not work for me. And it immediately jumps on all the men and kills them in a heartbeat. But with Joyce, did you see the lounging on the kind of like with his hand under his head, hey baby?
It was a very weird pose that they had it in on the ceiling because and
he's just listening to her.
We
talk.
needed to be able to see its face. We needed to see that it was like.
But I mean, it's just hanging like all the others. It jumps on them and it immediately mucuses into their face.
Okay, I have a theory that it's
that it's a demon.
That it's a demon. I have a theory.
A dancing demon?
Something isn't right there.
We're not there yet. Yes. Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Not a theory, maybe so much as an observation. So the first.
Yes.
Who does it kill first? Does it kill the man in the hospital first, or does it kill the man in the woods first? I don't remember.
It kills the man in the woods first. The guard.
That's right.
The guard that they sent home.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. First of all, that's just fucking weird because then, Riley and the initiative and everybody's out looking around. I'm like, this dude, how far did he get from his family? Are they not looking for him?
Who's taking care of him? And the first night back, too. Like, you would think somebody the first night back would be like, hey, Dad, let me hang out with you.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So it drops on the man in the woods, and then it drops on the guys in the hospital. The man in the woods, I don't know, but the guys in the hospital are all strapped to their beds, which disturbing. Yeah. We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah, we will.
They couldn't possibly fight back, but Joyce is not restrained.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe it hangs out longer because it's gotta wait to.
I think it's hitting on her. I think it bought her a dirty Grey Goose martini and just slid it across the bar and was like, "Hey, baby, tell me your problems." Because the way that it's lounging there, it looks like it's lying down with one hand behind its head, kind of like, "Hey," it's doing a sexy pose.
It's doing Job of the Hutt.
Whatever. It is seducing Joyce, and then after a while, it's like, "Well, okay, I'm bored now," and just jumps on her.
Drop on you. I'm just going to drop on you.
So yeah, it's a little weird. But, I mean, I realize that we have that so that we can extend this moment of suspense where we're like, oh, is it going to get Joyce? But it didn't sit there and have a therapy session with any of the others first.
She's unrestrained, and also she is, a problematic word incoming. She's more sane. Mm-hmm. She has moments of clarity and being herself throughout this episode that the folks who have been sucked dry by Glory don't appear to.
Is it trying to discern whether this is something it's allowed to kill? It only kills people who are past a certain point.
I don't know. Which, again, there's some problematic illness metaphor bullshit, who is sick enough to write off, who is sick enough to say, or healthy enough to save, and who's sick enough to
worth saving. Who's worth saving, right? Yeah.
Even in our
disturbing
cockroach demon things from outer space, we still have I don't know if this one's, I don't know.
The Queller is called in to kill people,
specifically to get rid of the air quotes problem that is air quotes Mad Men, which apparently was a TV show that people watched. Anyway.
Yeah, but that was about advertising on Madison Avenue. It wasn't about...
It
was about mental illness, but it wasn't about mental illness. You know what I mean?
Different kind of mental illness.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Societal mental illness, which we have very, very badly. Yeah. No, it's the Queller is just disturbing in a million ways. And there's, honestly, when it comes down to it, I don't, the way in which it is specifically evil, is disturbing commentary on us as the people who would call it down to kill our friends and family because they weren't behaving the way we wanted them to, or or they were suffering or struggling with an illness.
Because what's a drag really is people suffering, people struggling, people suffering. Just such a drag. Let's just get rid of all of them.
Such a drag.
Oh my God.
And I guess maybe there's an implication that those were all communities that Glory had attacked in the past or whatever. There's a hint of that
Yeah, I don't
possibility that
know.
this Queller is specifically there to clean up after Glory. And maybe he was trying to decide if Joyce had been touched by Glory. But the thing is that as a magical space cockroach, he should be able to figure that out, right? Just look at somebody and know immediately if they had been. But again, we don't get any clarity on any of that. I mean, that's just something that you would kind of think, well, maybe that's what it is. I think that there's some textual kind of hinting toward that, but no confirmation.
Well, and it's all speculation anyway. Like the Scoobies go into research mode and it's adorable and enjoyable to see them doing that. But it's all like
library. They're in a library.
But it's all speculation. Like it's all based on these invented connections where Willow's like, oh, I guess this happened around the same time. And I'm like, okay, I get it. We need to like quickly explain away. This isn't a one-off. Like this is a thing in the world. But I don't know. Guys. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's just like a lot of the presumptions that go on where people figure stuff out just because there's only so many minutes left in the episode. It's at that point where you're like, okay, whatever. But the Queller being, evil is evil on its own, fine. But Ben is evil.
Oh, shit.
Ben brings in a demon to kill all the people that Glory destabilized, clearly connected to Glory. All of this stuff that we talked about, that he's just, but the Queller is bad, but Ben is the real bad guy in this episode. And I just want that stated for clarity. Because Ben sucks. Ben sucks donkey balls. Ben is terrible.
Even Drag is like, whoa, man, that was like a lot.
Even Drag is
Drag is like,
when Drag judges your moral choices, I think that you got to take a moment and look at yourself. You know what I'm saying?
When Drag is like, I don't know, that seems kind of harsh.
That seems, dude. That seems like a little much. I don't know if you're feeling okay or whatever, if the pressure is getting to you.
When
but
Drag becomes the moral compass, you're just like,
when Drag is your Jiminy Cricket, then shit's gone wrong in life.
Not okay.
In life.
Bad choices,
right.
Ben. Ben made some so Ben has made some bad choices. Ben may have really good reasons for making bad choices. We'll get there. but we'll see.
He may have mildly sympathetic reasons for making some of the choices he makes. But Ben, I will argue, and I think I will continue to argue this unless something happens that I've forgotten in the next, handful of episodes that will change my mind. But Ben continues to be the worst. He's pretty terrible. And the fact that we don't textually hold him responsible for that terribleness, I think is a little bit weird. But one thing that was really, really great in this episode, though, is Tara and Willow.
Oh my God.
Just this quick scene that it's nothing at all except for that this is when they see the meteor come in. Nothing really to do with anything. It's just a lovely moment. And in an episode that's, again, reheated bad meatloaf and flavorless mashed potatoes. It's nice to have this moment, with Tara and Willow, where they're naming the constellations, and it's so sweet, and they're such a great couple, and it's so nice to just have a nice moment.
I love this whole scene so much.
It's so nice.
I know we need an excuse for somebody to be staring at the sky when the meteorite does its thing.
Right.
I'll
take it.
This is the best. Oh, this is the actual best. If we needed a reason, if we needed that setup, I'm like, this is wonderful. Willow, see, I can't even speak. Willow and Tara on the roof with the constellations is queer catnip. I mean, spoiler alert, this is my favorite part. I love it so much. I love it so much. And when this quarantine nonsense is over, I am taking my girlfriend to a friendly rooftop somewhere. This is so good.
So nice.
It's so good. I love that Willow starts talking about dying stars and Tara immediately is like, were things rough at the hospital? It's this great bid for connection. I'm here if you want to talk. And Willow just kind of flinches and, doesn't seem to want to talk about her feelings. But I love that Tara is Tara's reading between the lines. Tara knows what's up. And
Tara sees.
I love it so much. I mean, and then Tara pointing out the big pineapple.
Oh.
I mean, and then she explains, her explanation is so good. It's so good. I'm going to spend way too long on this, but I love it. She says, the real ones never made sense to me. I sort of have my own.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the most brilliant approach to stories where you don't see yourself represented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and constellations are stories.
Yes, they are.
That's kind of the point of identifying constellations for a lot of people. And Tara is understandably not into the idea of Poseidon placing Cassiopeia upside down among the stars to punish her for having been pretentious. I mean, that sounds exactly like something Tara's father would do.
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
I mean,
so she makes it a pineapple. I love
she
that.
makes it a pineapple. She queers constellations.
Yes.
And also, I mean, Rebecca Rand Kirshner, this is delightful. Short man looking uncomfortable. Moose getting a sponge bath. Little pile o' crackers. Like, give it up for some adorable, delightful writing. I love this.
It's very nice.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Too.
It makes me smile. It makes me happy. It gives me all of the like queer story rewriting feels delightful. This is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which did not come out, by the way, for another 4 years.
Right.
This is that romantic deliciousness of, you know, tell me which constellations you know, but with femme lesbian witches. And I just... I love that. I love that Tara and Willow did it first. That's just my whole. I love it.
Oh my God. No, I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And it was one of the few moments in this episode where I was like, oh no, that's genuinely good, you know? So I really, really enjoyed that. Did not enjoy as much Joyce in this episode.
Yep.
I get that Joyce is saying strange things because of the pressure of the tumor in her brain, you know, and that it does, you know, create odd, you know, affectations and personality. Like, I get that. But she's supposed to just flash in and flash out. And then suddenly she's supposed to be Joyce again. But she's not Joyce in this episode. She is suddenly incredibly childlike at all turns, you know. She won't talk to the doctor. She makes Buffy do it for her. And I know the swap between parent and child does happen, you know, sometimes when a parent needs caretaking. But Joyce is still Joyce predominantly.
Not to this degree.
Yeah. Not
typically
when a child is that young, when both children are that young. Like if a parent is, you know, way up there and then the child is in their 40s, 50s, you know, I mean, that is a time when you can see, I think, that swap happen a little more abruptly, you know, but in this circumstance, you know, I don't. And also, the brain tumor has not completely incapacitated her. She is just treated as a child because there's something going on in her brain. Like, the way that we see her is as completely incapacitated. And even in the end, you know, when we have her talking about what she saw with Buffy, she speaks like a child, you know?
We do get a little bit of actual Joyce, but it's not enough.
And mostly she is just completely childlike during this whole thing, which I think is weird. She's also on medication, but we don't talk about that. We don't address it. This is the thing. Like, it's not addressed that she is not behaving like Joyce, even when she's not shouting these weird things. We talk about the flashes as being a thing, but not that the rest of the time it's weird. And I find it especially troubling in the same way I find this like instant othering of people with mental illness in this episode. We've talked about this at length before. We've addressed this a bit. But I just want to say that the scariest thing in this episode, demons included, is not the demon. It's how uncommented upon the terrible treatment of people with mental illness is. This is treated as normal and appropriate. Strapped to beds. Multiple per room, ignored when they cry out, and treated as subhuman. And then Ben hires an out-of-towner to kill them all, which is another thing. We've already addressed that. But I find the way that the lives of these people who have been destabilized by Glory, you know, are treated as so much less. Can you imagine if we had 5 people in a room, all of whom had been in a car crash, right? So they're bleeding profusely, they're crying because they're in pain, and we stuff them all in one room, strap them all to beds, and ignore their cries. I mean, we would be horrified. And yet, here we are.
Well, and we have another shitty middle-aged female nurse, too. Like, she's just kind of barely there. We see her cover up the patient and then turn the lights out and leave. And, you know, he's screaming at her not to leave. But she's just presented as like cold. She's and
Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
Right?
Sitting there like eating mini donuts while the queller drops down on these patients. It's
we treat them as less than human textually. Like we treat them as not just destabilized by Glory, but dehumanized by Glory. And Glory isn't the one that dehumanizes them. We do.
Yeah. Yeah. But we also, I don't know, we also then turn right around and like pin this neglect on this unnamed female nurse who is ignoring the screaming that's going on in the other room. And we've seen this before. We see this before, we see this all over, but we've seen it before on Buffy too, with there's like this middle-aged woman trope that they like to hit upon. That's like, the like secretly the worst people are the middle-aged nurses and cafeteria ladies and this absent a population from this world because they're the only representation is as neglectful and evil. And I'm going way too far into the weeds on this thing that's like not really a thing.
But it's interesting.
Here we go again with this nurse.
Right. We don't see middle-aged women. I mean, even like Giles's girlfriends, you know, Jenny Calendar and Olivia were like early 30s, right? But they were also beautiful, right? We don't get any, you know, normal looking middle-aged women who aren't just there to be the handmaidens of evil. Now, is there something to be said about middle-aged white women being the handmaidens of evil? Yes, I think that there is, but I don't think that that's what they're trying to do.
No.
I don't think they're making that kind of social commentary. They are taking these women that are essentially disposable and making them evil. You know, so I think that there's something a little bit disturbing in that presumptive space.
And even the nurse who preps Joyce for surgery is slightly younger and slightly prettier, or at least depicted that way. She has no lines. She just comes in and like does a, you know, some sort of a pre-surgery something or other.
But we have the nurse that called in the Watchers on Faith, right? In this year's Girl.
It's fucked up, guys. It's a thing.
It is.
But we're talking about Joyce. I mean,
we are talking about Joyce. We're talking about a pretty middle-aged woman, so we care about her.
And I mean, and I like her being angry at the doctor.
Yes.
I like, you know, like, no, I am feeling worse staying in the hospital. Like, I want to get the hell out of here. Yeah, for sure. I like her being mom to Willow when she comes in with gifts. Like, even with a headache, you know, she's in the hospital. She's got this, you know, not so little headache. And Willow is having that moment of being kind of embarrassed for having brought maybe not quite the right thing.
But so cute, though.
And Joyce is very sweet. Like, you can see the mom.
Yes.
That kind maternal energy while she's also the one who is the patient. Like felt very real and very Joyce to me. But then when Joyce starts to have these flashes of being not herself, it's like even the moments of clarity for Joyce after that, she's not herself. She's that conversation at the end between Joyce and Buffy, where Joyce is confiding in Buffy is really, really, really terrible. And I really, really hate it. I really, really hate it.
Tell the good people why you hate this so much.
Okay. All right. So I know that we're doing this like reversal of roles with parent and child, which we're doing clunkily at best.
Yeah.
But this is not appropriate. This is not the kind of thing that as a parent you say to your child about your other child. Like,
even if the child is the slayer, this is something she should be saying to Giles.
I mean,
right? If she has this suspicion that there's some mystical something going on.
Oh my God. And how much better would that have been?
How much better? And Giles not knowing what he should say,
like,
and what
does
he
he
shouldn't
say that he knows?
And then
there you go. You just,
I think he would just send Buffy in to tell her, because Joyce doesn't know that Buffy knows this.
Right.
Joyce doesn't know that Buffy has any idea. She has no idea. And the idea that we've had this swap, it's parent-child swap, which is just not, it, like you said, clunkily done, not great. But like, how much better would this have been if Joyce had been Joyce and she protected Buffy and went to Giles and said, I think there's something wrong.
And I mean, I feel super conflicted about like a secret identity story or secrets within stories, because it's like, why are we not just telling each other things? But I love the idea that Joyce would go to Giles with something like this. And then everybody would have the conflict about like, who do I tell that I know what I know?
How do I, right.
That would be great.
And how Giles handled that situation.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But what we get instead is this like weirdly uncomfortable,
in this very childlike, right?
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No.
Dawn, she's not mine, is she? She does belong to us, though. Like, it's this she's speaking kind of out of time.
She has the dialogue of an 8-year-old child.
It's just nope. And then that whole bit about as precious as you are to me, like she's clearly, Joyce is framing this as having a favorite child. Yeah. Because even though Dawn feels like her daughter, Buffy feels more like her daughter, and Buffy is the favorite. And it's, I don't know. This is some enmeshed relationship bullshit, and just no.
Yeah, no, it's really
not like it. I do not like it. It
really not good.
It doesn't. No, I don't like it. I don't like it.
But you know what actually was kind of awesome though? I mean, Dawn's kind of a fucking badass in this episode.
Is
like
great.
She comes in, sees a demon on her mother, and freaking gets a coat rack and beats the shit out of it, gets it out, shuts the door, screams for Buffy, does everything right. Dawn sits there and takes care of her mother. I mean, she's just fantastic in it. And I get why Dawn annoys people. Like, I get what it is. Also because she's kind of written in a little more childlike, at least in the early stages, than is appropriate necessarily for her age. So there's some of that, dissonance, which is a little irritating. But I actually like Dawn for the most part. I like Dawn. I think she's great, and I love her in this.
She is great in this episode. I mean, I've talked before about how much I love Dawn, but this is so minor.
Yeah.
I so appreciate that Dawn is not easily grossed out.
Yes. I like that too.
I mean, I love her beating a demon off her mother and successfully like barricading the room and like amazing. But I also love that she's sitting there as we open, eating lime jello with her fingers while talking about how gelatin is made from ground up cow's feet.
Yep.
And in Full for Love, when Buffy reveals her stab wound, Dawn's initial reaction is cool. She's not easily grossed out or upset in this way that we're told that little girls, air quotes, right?
Or women, or exactly.
It is lovely and fantastic, and I love it.
Yeah.
I was a little
Dawn
bit
is very cool. Mm-hmm.
I was just a little bit confused about the layout of the Summers house, though, upstairs.
I have never figured out.
Is there
I
a
have
door?
never figured out.
It looks
There's
like
a door
there's
to
a
the
door
bathroom.
directly from Dawn's room to Joyce's room. Can that be right?
Think so. I'm confused by the whole thing. And maybe there is. Joyce's room has a door to the bathroom and has a door to the hallway. And then I think, maybe it is a door to Dawn's room. I'm not sure.
That's not unheard of, especially for a quote unquote baby's room.
Right.
But I was briefly confused when Dawn was barricading. I felt like I didn't have a good sense of the space and what.
I have never had a sense of the upstairs. The upstairs of the Summers house feels like the TARDIS to me. Like it expands. It's bigger than it looks from the outside. I mean, I honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I long ago, and also like I'm very, very bad at figuring out like the spatial, like I have the world's worst sense of direction. You can put me outside in a place that I've lived for a number of years and not even spin me around a couple of times, and I still will be like, I don't know what direction.
I don't know where I am.
I don't know what's going on. I have no idea.
No.
So yeah, I've got really, really terrible sense of direction. So me figuring out like the space of everything is kind of beyond me. I'm absolutely certain that on the internet somewhere somebody has a blueprint of the Summers house that actually makes sense, but I have absolutely no idea how this stuff works. But I do have a question though about Dawn.
Yes.
Does Dawn have a soul?
I mean, she's human.
She's energy made human, right?
Uh-huh.
But not human because everybody sees what she is at her core. But did the monks give her a soul? Can they give her a soul? If so, why can't they just cure Angel? I don't know. If you can just make a soul from shit you have around the house, monks, go to town. There's a guy in LA you could see, I mean, yeah. So like how
what a bizarre question, because
it just occurred to me today. I was like, wait a minute, because Dawn's clearly good. Dawn's vulnerable. Dawn has a moral center, she's not evil, but can she have a soul, and how did the monks make it? Is it kind of the way that they make turkey from tofu? Is it soul-esque?
Oh my God.
Is it like this'll do, for a soul when you're a monk? I don't know. Well, but I find it interesting.
I mean, and it seems it would fit within the world that she had a soul, because having a soul is presented as the thing that keeps you from be destroyed. See, no, I don't totally understand. We're 5 seasons in, and I'm like, I don't really know how the show thinks the soul works. I know that
I still don't get it.
Vampires are supposed to not have them, and that's what makes them monsters. But
I don't know.
And then of course you like that bumps you up against the question of like, well, what does it mean to be human? If she's energy made human, I mean, obviously she has emotions, she has insecurities, she has fears and, as you say, like vulnerabilities, but
she's just a little girl, but she's a key, but she's just a little girl. Like she's actually a little girl. I don't know. It's so weird. Like the essence of her existence is really murky, but in the end, we just have to believe that whatever this key energy is basically Dawn's soul, the way that our souls are our souls,
I guess.
And they just put it in a little girl and sent it to Buffy.
Yes.
Via UPS ground, I guess. Like, I don't... kind of interstellar mystical, package delivery system that they have. I don't know.
And sometimes demons are from space. It's fine.
You know what? Sometimes they are. Noelle, what are you wearing?
We've never had demons from space, but
no,
now we do. It's
whatever.
Fine.
It's a thing.
It's all fine. It's all fine. Oh my God. Okay.
So Noelle, what are you wearing?
All right. So we don't have a lot of like deeply symbolic wardrobe choices in this episode, but we do get Joyce's long white nightgown, which is a staple of the suspense horror genre for fucking ever. I mean,
right.
It's pretty much, it really just adds to the creep factor of there's a monster in the house and it's the middle of the night and she's, you know, like sort of floating down the stairs in this like not quite all together, you know, sense. Like it's a very, it's very, very tropey, but it's very good. It works really well. It also kind of ties into that. She is more of a child. It's very, it reads quite vulnerable. And I think it's supposed to. And it's also just really hard to look creepy coming down the stairs in the middle of the night if you're wearing like flannel pajamas.
Very true.
You just kind of look like you're going to get a snack. Whereas the white nightgown.
Right. The white nightgown. The white nightgown that like no woman has worn since Victorian days. Like, oh,
I don't know. When my mom came home from the hospital from one of her surgeries, she had a lot. I don't know that it was white, but it was one of those like full-length
nightgowns?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I
thought we all just wore tank tops and sweats to bed.
I mean...
I don't sleep with a lot of grown women, though, so I got to say, I don't know.
Well, I do, and let me tell you. No. What's your favorite part?
Wait, we got to do Girl Power of the Week first. Yes.
Oh, not with a Girl Power Big.
We got to do Girl Power of the Week. Sleeping with grown women. That's my Girl Power of the Week.
That is very girl power.
I mean... Dawn with the hat rack or the coat rack, whatever it is, and the door barricade. I mean, awesome. Awesome.
Yes,
she does everything right. Totally.
She's so great. Yes.
The mom bedroom lockdown procedure, she is good. She is okay to go. But also, I would argue maybe a little bit Willow trying so hard, you guys.
Oh my God. Willow's the best in this episode. We don't get a whole lot of time with Willow, but what we get is fantastic.
I mean, staking vamps despite being scared and then getting shaky.
And she got 2 of them.
She did. Yeah. She did. Good for her. And big ones too. If you've ever wondered what Noelle would look like if they were a vampire, those like, you know, meathead, Amazon babe kind of vampire. I mean, it's close.
I love it.
It's close.
I love it.
I don't know. I just felt very represented. There was like vampire representation for my body type briefly, and I was excited.
I like it.
But also, you know, Willow shows up at the hospital as skinny female Jewish Santa Claus.
Oh, I know.
And giving Dawn age and level appropriate spell paraphernalia.
That. I wanted that book.
Right? So good. Also, thumbs up for gay aunts who come bearing esoteric reading material.
Hell yeah.
I mean, there you go. Not calling Buffy, even though she really, really wants to.
I know.
My baby.
I know. She's so
boundaries.
Good.
And of course, Tara reminding her. Like, I know you really want to, but you can't. She's got life stuff that has to come first. I'm like, yeah, boundaries. Boundaries for the girl power. I love
Tara's
it.
The best. Tara's the best of all of us. If you ever want to be a good person, just think, what would Tara do?
She's also fictional. So
yeah, that's true. What does that say? Okay, so what's your favorite part?
I mean, surprising no one. Tara queering the constellations.
It's pretty great.
It's great. It's great.
It's pretty great.
What's your favorite part?
You know, oddly enough, Buffy crying while washing the dishes. I mean, there's something extremely relatable about that experience. Like, you're taking care of a whole household, and the only time you get to yourself is when you're doing a chore that no one wants to help you with, you know? And you can actually sit and cry in that moment because people will leave you alone. So yeah, like I felt that moment. Of course, Sarah Michelle Gellar, no matter what ridiculousness they give her, always can bring the emotion. You know, so this episode has a lot of ridiculous, like last week she had to straddle a rubber snake and beat the shit out of it. And this week she had to have a space cockroach on top of her and like she pulls off all of that stuff. But these emotional moments are really where she shines. And I think she did such a great job with that.
Buffy crying while doing the dishes to obnoxiously upbeat music on a bad day is the realest I think this show has ever gotten.
It is incredibly real. All right, if you enjoyed this conversation, would like to join in, come find us on social media. I am at Lani Diane Rich on Twitter, and Noelle is at Noelle Aloud on Instagram, and the hashtag is Still Pretty.
This episode of Still Pretty was brought to you by the Chipperish Media producers who support us on Patreon at the Power Producer level. These people are the reason why Still Pretty is coming to you free and ad-free right now, so thank you to our May producers: Abigail, Alice, Crimson Glass, Erica, Jonathan, Kristen, Sarah, and Shelley. And this week's special message for our power producers: you're the one who insisted on teaching her to talk.
To find out how you too can support Chipperish Media, visit patreon.com/chipperish. And don't forget, we are in the middle of Goatchella, which is what I have named the Zoom meeting that I will have with 300 Chipperish supporters on Zoom. We will invite a goat in. We're fundraising for that now, stretch goal to get that support up. So if you are so inclined, visit patreon.com/chipperish and make that shit happen. Other ways to show your support: write a great review on Apple Podcasts, tell your friends about the show, or frisk about like a fluffy lamb. I actually should take that out because Goatchella is going to be done by the time this episode goes out. I forgot we're so far ahead.
We're ahead. It's great.
We are ahead.
Goatchella. We will be back next time with Into the Woods, the 10th episode of Season 5, and the exit of Riley.
Oh my God, I am so excited just for that.
Until then, we can't call Buffy. I want to call Buffy!
I love it.
Meanwhile, out in the hospital... Why is my mouth not working?
Welcome to Sunday morning, which could be any other morning because nobody knows what day it is. And
it is.
Fuck it all.
Yeah, it could be literally any day. We have no idea.
It honestly really could. Yeah.
Well, I told you about the other weekend when I woke up and I was like, it is Thursday, 100% sure, totally certain. Like, who does that? Not just in quarantine, but like in general. Like, it's Saturday morning and I'm like really confidently 100% Thursday. Definitely Thursday, not any other day of the week. What?
I know what day it is.
What? Oh my God. Grasping at straws.
Oh my God.